Hello and welcome back to the Lent for Everyone podcast. This is Tyler. I'm here tonight with Michelle, and we're just going to hit the ground running. Real quick, everything going okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. So I want to tell a story really quick about Michelle and I when we first came to First Church. And we were at the time in serving at a Methodist church in Naperville, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And we were doing just fine there. And Pastor Scott, who any of our people who are listening probably know him or remember him anyway, he gave me a call and said, "Hey, Tyler, I'd like to take you out to dinner, you and Michelle, and we want to tell you about First Church, and let's just get together and talk about that." So we met together. Do you remember where we went?
Yeah, Mexican food was super good.
It was Mexican? Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's that restaurant in Naperville that you guys both used to go there all the time?
Is that where we went? I can't remember.
And then they made us get that cheesy dip. They swore on it, and it was good.
Yeah, Nachos Del Mar. I actually introduced Scott
so wait,
to that.
what's that restaurant?
It's gone now. I don't
know,
remember
but
what it's called.
it was a big deal down there. I feel like I'm saying a lot. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
So anyway, we sat down and Pastor Scott sort of told us about the church in Crystal Lake, and sort of sold us on this idea of, come to Crystal Lake and, work with young adults and, work with contemporary worship, and the church is ready to do some great things. And they kind of, charged us up about it. And we were pretty excited about it, right? Mm-hmm. And
you still did go through some other proper channels. Let's just put that out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was just trying to introduce me to the idea of moving, which, anytime you move your church community, whether
you had lived in the south suburbs for quite a while.
Yeah. So
at that point.
Right. So
we had only been married about a year.
Yeah.
Newlyweds. And this was 2015.
Right. So anyway, we came to First Church, and we've loved it. It's been great. We've made excellent friends. Feel like ministry is strong, and COVID difficulties aside, it's been a great place for us to gather and to call home.
A good fit for us. Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm telling this story is because in one of the readings for Lent for Everyone, which would have been Saturday's reading, N.T. Wright talks about when Peter rebukes Jesus for saying that he's going to suffer and die. Peter pulls Jesus aside and he starts to tell him, you can't do that.
No.
And Jesus gets really mad at him. And so I was just, when I was thinking about that scenario, I was thinking about when we came to First Church, because I think, Jesus's words towards Peter are so harsh. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." That's what it says, like maybe in the NIV translation.
Or accuser.
Yeah, or accuser is how N.T. Wright sort of interprets it. That's what the word Satan means, is accuser. So he says, "Get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, accuser." And you look at that and you go, okay, Peter's obviously in the wrong here because of how harshly Jesus treats him. But I think what Peter's doing is just about the most natural thing that any of us would do in his situation. And it made me think of this scenario where, Pastor Scott sort of pitched the idea of First Church to us and got us sort of jazzed up about the ministry. And then, we came. If he had said, "Okay, now that we're here, I'm leaving."
Yeah, in like a week or something.
Yeah, or retirement is on its way. It's already in the books. I'm retiring next year. I think we would have been really upset. Like, we would have been feel like, oh, you sold us on this vision of First Church and the ministry that's happening here, and you're out.
Yeah.
Like,
now he
bail?
did tell us he was heading towards retirement, which was pretty common knowledge.
But
it was like we knew it was going to be like 3 to 5 years. We had like a time frame.
Right. We had an idea already in our
and we were okay with that.
Right. So I'm thinking about Peter, who is, he's one of these guys that literally left his fishing nets, on the beach to follow Jesus. And then Jesus, is doing this thing, and there's these miracles, and there's power, and there's authority. And then all of a sudden, and it looks like Jesus is like poised to take over and be the king, like the true king of Israel, like what everybody was wanting and expecting, right? And so there's a lot of anticipation, there's a lot of excitement, and then Jesus starts going around saying things like, well, I'm going to die.
Yeah, I have to die. I'm out of here.
Yeah, peace out, y'all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm gonna be leaving.
we should be able to identify with Peter here because,
For sure.
that
What are
would-
you, crazy?
Yeah.
This is your gig. Like, we don't do this without you. This is you. Yeah.
Imagine how you would feel if you had decided to follow your friend to anything. And then when you got there and you were really excited and they decided.
They were like, just kidding.
Yeah, I'm out. What if they bailed? You would feel betrayed. You would feel confused. And you would be upset.
And annoyed.
Yeah, and
sure.
I think, so...
That's probably happened to all of us at one point. Although usually for me, it's the flip. I'm trying to get people to do stuff.
Yeah.
I remember the last thing I wanted to try was karate. And my good friend Marcy was like, no way. So anyway, I can still identify.
Karate. Right.
I don't know. It's just on my bucket list to try to learn a martial art. Okay, moving on. Not
really moving on, but I think that sets up
Yeah.
some of these other things.
I still identify.
So Jesus has two things that's going to generate the questions for us tonight. The first thing that he says that I want to point out is he called the crowd to him. Again, there's a crowd, right? If any of you want to come the way I'm going, he said, you must say no to your own selves, pick up your cross and follow me. If you want to save your life, you'll lose it. But if you lose your life because of me and the message, you'll save it. Okay, so that's in the context of Jesus sort of disappointing the disciples, leaving them feeling confused and betrayed. He says, guess
adds
what?
another layer of
Right.
confusion.
Yeah, you have to do this too.
Wait, what?
Right. So
Even hearing you say that, my eyes were crossing a little bit like, wait, what? And
it's
I've
tough.
heard it like 100 times,
Yeah, so that
probably 1,000.
then that takes us to my first question here. In what ways do you feel like you have to say no to yourself for the sake of God's kingdom? Could be small, could be big. What are the ways that you deny yourself, which is how other translations say it? How do you deny yourself for the sake of the kingdom? When does that come up for you?
I think a lot of times it comes up in like difficult relationships.
Yeah, say more about that.
I mean, I'm not sure how much I can say, but it's just, I am trying to serve. I mean, it comes across in, work and families. And I mean, I just try to be empathetic and the classic, like, what would Jesus do? I mean, this person is created by God too. This person is loved by God. This person needs whatever it is, just as much as I do. So.
Right. So what's the self-denial?
So the self-denial is, I want to walk away, give up, be mean, whatever. Like, I want to do anything but sit there and take, air quotes, take it or or try to be kind or whatever is against my natural instinct. And that happens, again, in all kinds of settings. Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe that you have any instinct to be mean.
Why do people say that? No, I'm just kidding. No, my students actually have been saying that I look very patient lately, and I told them, you don't know I'm screaming on the inside.
So I think what you're describing is pretty common.
Right.
Like,
who gets along with the whole world and thinks like they do? Nobody.
Right. A part of being in a relationship is at some point denying yourself for the sake of another person. Like, that's, if you don't do that, if you have no like relational compromise,
then you probably don't have a lot of friends.
Yeah. Or you have a lot of
conflicts, drama.
Yeah. Or just weak-willed friends that you almost like take advantage of or boss around.
Yeah,
or
maybe.
It's not even a real relationship. So yeah, that's a good example of where you have to deny yourself.
Just, this is probably off topic, but so I value some of my friendships the most because not just that they're kind to me too, but also sometimes that they tell me how it is. Like, Michelle, you need to like do something different.
Yeah, so I want to key that just a little bit, because you're saying, I have to deny myself for the sake of these relationships. That's totally true. I get that. How do you think that relates specifically to denying yourself for the sake of God's kingdom?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
you mean bigger?
Make it more specific to God's kingdom, because I think that's, just talking about like healthy relationships.
Yeah, your day to day. God's kingdom. Gosh. I mean,
let me tell you mine.
Okay, I have one
and then
maybe.
We'll see if that jars some ideas for you. For me, the thing that comes to my mind immediately is money.
Like
sure. any time, and it's
and if anyone's been around First Church long enough, they probably know you did preach on this a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough, and I feel like I don't have a really unhealthy relationship with money. But I'll say that the instinct for me with money is to direct it towards things that benefit me. Like saving money. Protecting investments.
Yeah, you don't even buy a lot of stuff.
Getting ready for retirement. All of those things, it is a struggle for me to just say, I'm going to give this away out of pure...
certain percentage,
pure faith that it's going to do something for God's kingdom. And so for me, it's small. I admit it, it's small, but it feels huge to me to say, okay, I'm going to deny some of this.
I got it. Yeah.
For God's kingdom. Like, not just I'm going to deny it because it's a good thing to do or it's healthy and all that kind of stuff, but like specifically I'm going to deny this for the sake of God's kingdom. That's just my example.
But you've come a long way with that, so that's
yeah.
You probably grit your teeth every time.
Not every time.
Okay. Well, in that sense, I would say maybe I had a different idea, but I think I know other people that are really good at giving their time. I struggle so much with giving my time. I want, like, you want control of the money and you want it to yourself. I want my time to myself. I want, like, especially if something comes up last minute, or I really struggle.
This is why you don't volunteer in the nursery.
Well,
or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That was a joke, mostly, but
I can't do no. Nursery's not just not.
You
my
would
thing,
rather just give away money.
I am
than
so
show
fine.
up.
Can I write you a check? And we're not even like really, well off or anything. I will give you money, but I just struggle giving away my time.
Yeah.
And if something's on the calendar, I mean, I think I'm pretty okay with my commitments, but it's just harder for me.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody's going to have a little bit different example, just sort of at the tip of their tongue. But I think one of the reasons that it's important to point these things out is that how often do you find, as Jesus suggests, when you deny yourself, you gain life? How often do you engage in these small denials of your own will or your own, like, what you would maybe naturally do for yourself, and it feels tough at the time, but then that gives life back to you?
Oh yeah.
Like, how many times do you, for me personally, where I resist and I push back and I think no, anytime it comes, not any time, but a lot of times when it comes to being generous with finances, and then later I find myself just being like full of life, because when I realize what that money could do for someone in need, or how that helped the gospel make its way across the world or across the communities. So just like Jesus says, when you lose your life for me, you save it. In these small ways, when you deny these things of yourself, they give life back to you. I just think that's awesome. So, and I think you would agree, like, the idea of giving up your time for something for the sake of God's kingdom, even though it feels tough to agree to it, when you come away from that experience, life-giving.
Yeah. I mean, when, for example, we did Habitat, and I don't actually, that those experiences that we've participated in Habitat for Humanity this last year have been, I mean, I wanted to do them, but it still was hard for us to take those days. And we missed a lot of days because we thought we could give that time, and then we decided we couldn't, or we would, probably my fault, we made excuses. But those days that we put into those houses were so awesome. We both, I think, came away from them just a little bit high on life and whatnot, just feeling like that was a really good experience that we were able to do that.
Well, I'm sorry I'm not more help to you in that scenario, because you know me, my favorite thing to do is canceled plans.
Well, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay,
you're good.
Let's move on to the second question here. We're running kind of long here. So in the next 2 verses, after Jesus says, if you lose your life because of me and the message, you'll save it. The next verse he says, after all, what use is it to win the world and lose your life? What can you give in exchange for your life? If you're ashamed of me and my words in this cheating and sinning generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of you when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Okay, so he's basically saying, if you're ashamed of me now, then I will be ashamed of you when it really matters.
Ouch.
And yeah, that's tough. And so N.T. Wright says this interesting thing. How do we live in such a way that we avoid being ashamed of Jesus, but also we don't want to seem like we're some wild fanatic, right? Like you've probably met someone who's a wild fanatic and thought, well, gosh, I don't want to be like that, you know? So what he writes, N.T. Wright, what he writes is, the danger of fanaticism, of a self-induced and self-promoting zeal, maybe that helps describe what that type of person is like. But there's also the danger, and much of modern Western Christianity runs the risk of this all the time, of being ashamed of the sharp-edged and scandalous message of the kingdom and the cross. I suspect many of us today need to be warned against the second more than the first. So basically he's saying is, yeah, nobody wants to be a fanatic, but if you're worried about being one or the other, it seems like people err more
Probably
on the
shouldn't
side.
worry as much about being a
Don't
fanatic.
be worried, worried as much about being a fanatic, because in the Western world, that's really sort of uncommon, maybe. So the question is, do you ever feel the hint of being ashamed of the kingdom and the cross? And if so, when does that usually happen? Are there particular scenarios where maybe you don't feel ashamed, but you think, ooh, this could be dicey if I am too forthcoming about my faith?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to say, but I think work probably first and foremost. I mean, I actually have to put up a shield because I'm a teacher and I'm not in a religious school. So that's pretty constant. I'm very aware of what I say. I think I've actually gotten better at it, though. Like I will say I've gone to church, I've read my Bible, Mr. Hughes is a pastor, things like that. And even before, I would sometimes try to leave that stuff out. But I've come to realize that's who I am, and I am in a very diverse environment. So I feel like it shouldn't really make a big difference if I go to this church and you go to this mosque, like we're all doing our thing, right? But it's still tough, I think, with colleagues in certain situations, or just different groups of friends over the years, just trying to not appear as a fanatic, and so maybe holding back a little bit.
So I get this from time to time where I just want to seem normal to people,
Right.
Like, not because I think that they're going to judge me or something like that. It's like I've decided already for them that they're probably going to judge me.
Yeah, for sure. That happens a lot.
Right? Like, I don't give them a chance to take me at face value, or even to just make a valuation based on my personality and my, ability to relate and communicate. I just assume that they're going to assume I'm weird.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think I err way to the side of I don't want to appear to be some sort of
Or set off
fanatic.
any alarms.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't, to say that you're ashamed of your faith or ashamed of Jesus, I think that's pretty dramatic. Mm-hmm. And we live in a culture that
It's pretty accepting for the rest of the world.
It is pretty accepting, and the most you might suffer is, your reputation. I don't even know if your reputation can be tarnished by just saying, I believe in and follow Jesus. I feel like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, no one would bat an eye at that. And that actually could be a segue into sharing your faith. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, I feel like it's more like, okay, well, that's your thing. So don't put it on me and we're good. And let's not talk about homosexuality. Let's not talk about politics.
Of the hot topics.
Yeah, let's not touch any of that because I've read the headlines about you people, And so I feel like I'm very aware, probably too aware that perception is out there.
Right.
And so, I sort of can clam up a little bit about my faith in those settings. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that counts as being ashamed, but I feel like that's like, the precursor to being ashamed is to be overly self-conscious of the things that are supposed to be the bedrock of your life and faith.
That's what's really weird about it sometimes, right? And that's what's so weird about going to work in a secular environment and not sharing the most important thing about you. It's definitely a bizarre tightrope to walk, for sure.
It's the opposite of self-denial, right? Like you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your reputation.
Or you're forced to sometimes. Like I said, as a teacher, I can't openly share my faith. That's just not an appropriate venue based on the expectations and things that are set up on me. Yeah.
So I think the way this all relates us back to Lent is that Lent is literally the season of self-denial. It's the season of where we sort of journey with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so when you read this passage in particular, like this is a Lent passage for sure, that we need to be, number one, more sort of just denying ourselves in our faith and our walk with Jesus, but also we need to be more bold in claiming Jesus as our Lord and Savior.
Yeah. Well, and part of N.T. Wright's commentary was going with the flow isn't always the best thing, right? He was saying how Peter was like, he's like, it sounds good, and even the devil, like, why would you go? Stay. Well, you're healing people. You're doing all these great things, live to a ripe old age of whatever, and this will have a great memories, I think is how N.T. Wright put it. It sounds like that's the great, the plan, go with the flow, but it's really not always the best.
Or just do what seems like common sense. What seems
fine, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. That's not the way of the cross. That's not the way of redemption.
No.
Is what he said.
Right. So something to be aware of, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So think about those two questions for yourself as you are listening, or just as you are in your own thoughts and meditation this week. What are the ways that you deny yourself as a Christ follower for the sake of God's kingdom? And then,
how can you improve on? Like I said, time is a struggle for me. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
I need to work on that.
The other just being, do you feel yourself leaning towards being ashamed?
Yeah. And where are those places and how can you better navigate those situations?
Right. And I think that's what we're going to talk about on Friday in the group is what are the things that help you deal with those feelings of maybe embarrassment or just, feeling unsure about not being bold in your faith. How can we overcome that? So, all right.
Great.
The group is on Friday night, 8:30 p.m.
Yep.
The link to join us in our Zoom meeting is in the e-news, and I think it also showed up on Facebook last week. So if you go back to the Facebook group for First Church, you'll probably be able to find that out there. But otherwise, that's all we got.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.